Hello, welcome back to Hammer the Backlog, the Warhammer miniature painting accountability and productivity blog. My name is Mick. I am the one who hammers at the backlog, and this week you join me for week 2 of our annual planning session and an unusually blank table. The reason for the blank table is we are about to start our annual planning for year 2. That means going into my pile of shame, my accumulated years of unpainted models, rooting through them and coming up with some targets for this year. Our targets are somewhat defined by the ethos, the idea, the logic of the entire project. And the logic of this project is for me to get all of my unpainted Warhammer box sets and all of my unpainted Warhammer miniatures, which are in a salvageable condition, painted up to a standard that I'm happy with. If you watched last week's video, you'll see that last year I got 2 fully painted box sets done and all of our targets were achieved. So we're hoping to carry that momentum into the next year. So before we even go and look at the pile of shame, we know that a big part of this year will be getting some box sets finished. Not everything has to come from a box set. I have plenty of models that want to be painted that aren't from box sets, but as with last year, we're going to try to get at least 2 box sets added to the pile of what I now call unshame. So let's go take a look at the pile of shame before we start picking out what we're going to do this year. So this is the pile of shame. We have some of the unfinished projects up here. Over here we have a couple of the complete board games. In this box we have the entirety of Conquest magazine. So we have a Ultramarines army and a Death Guard army for 7th or 8th edition Warhammer 40,000. Over here we have some more unfinished projects in various plastic boxes. More unfinished projects in here, some metal miniatures and one of the bigger boxes of shame. Then the biggest box of shame, some more unfinished projects and 2 little storage boxes. And finally, this case, which we'll have a look at in a moment. Okay, I'm going to pop each of them out and have a quick look. So, in this box, we have about half of Conquest magazine up to about issue 40. So we have a Ultramarines, mostly Primaris, but some Firstborn Marines, base coated to a decent standard and shaded, but no highlights just yet. This box is the Death Guard half of Conquest magazine, up to about issue 40. Again, base coated to a decent standard, following the magazine, but not highlighted and only very basically shaded. This box is one of the boxes of abandoned projects. So in here we have lots of things that have been collected and started but never finished. We've got a unit of 20 8th edition Warhammer Phoenix Guard. 1 or 2 of them are painted to a decent standard, but all of the rest are waiting for paint. The same for some 8th edition starter set Swords Masters. We have a couple of squads of Necrons in here that I never got around to painting. We have some Chaos Space Wolves. We have some beautiful metal Legion of the Damned miniatures that I started but never got any further on. And that's really the theme of this box. It's things that I started and never finished. And finally, for these drawer type boxes, it is the scenery from Conquest magazine. Again, this is up to about issue 40 or issue 50 maybe. Decently undercoated and shaded, but a lot of work left to do to finish it. This is an incredible collection of stuff from the very beginning of, I think, 3rd edition Warhammer right up to 8th edition. Next up we have Deathwatch Overkill, the board game from, I don't know, about 10 years ago from Games Workshop. This one was super exciting when it came out, because this one introduced modern Gene Stealer cults. As you can see, with most of these things, I did get a tiny bit of a start, including, I'm surprised to find out, a bit of experimentation on the Gene Stealer hybrid skin, which I don't remember doing. So that must have been a while ago. Oh, look at him! He's even got a little bald head that I kind of started on. And I had also, obviously, got a bit of a start on deciding on a basing theme. And that base looks pretty nice, actually. So that is Deathwatch Overkill. That's probably 2/4 worth on its own. The next complete box game is Blood Bowl 3rd Edition, the game of fantasy football. This might be the oldest unfinished box set currently in the collection. Relatively few models in here, but this is essentially mint. I bought this brand new. So all of these guys are untouched. There are, I think, a team of 12 orc players and a team of 12 human players. These are lovely old style monopose models that I'm pretty excited to get working on. This box is one of the big ones. This is Conquest magazine from about issue 50 to 80. So there is a lot of stuff in here. There is a battlefield worth of scenery. There are bases. There are space marines. There are Death Guard. There is a lot in here. What makes this tricky is because of the way it's divided out. I originally intended to do Conquest by doing one issue a week and following along with the progress of the magazine. And I made it through about 40 weeks, as you saw in the previous boxes, before the commitment got the better of me. So finishing this off is one of the big long-term goals. Okay, this box. This box is the original pile of shame. This is the box that has been around since the 90s. This box has all of my first ever failed generation of started projects. So in here we have Dogs of War, for example, some of the 1990s metal Dogs of War figures. We have some 3rd edition High Elf Spearmen. We have some old Dark Eldar models, including some that are probably broken beyond repair. We also have some very early multi-part plastic models, like this Chaos Warrior, and we have some of the very old Empire Knights in here too. This box is a treasure trove of old Games Workshop stuff. Oh look, some 3rd edition skeletons. 4th edition skeletons? Maybe. This box has really started to dwindle over the last couple of years, which is great. This is the box that inspired me to start Hammer the Backlog, to rescue the Bretonians and the Lizard Men from this box. That was step one. So maybe some of the targets for next year will come out of this box. This is another small box that represents some abandoned projects. In particular, this one looks like my attempt to build a Warhammer Fantasy Battle 8th edition High Elf force. So there are a couple of Lord of the Rings eagles in here. There are some unbuilt Island of Blood miniatures like the Prince on Griffin and some silver helms. There are lots and lots and lots of High Elf bits in here. Some old style shields, including some that I made myself from green stuff. And that was a while ago. Yeah, this box is basically the bits box of a half-abandoned High Elf army project. Right, this box. This is one of those sweaty boxes. This is the one I don't like. This makes me nervous because there is a lot of good stuff in here and it is being treated very badly. So there are some modern Empire things in here. For example, just here we can see the tip of an Empire General on Griffin, a relatively recent model from 8th edition Fantasy. We've also got some War Machine Hordes starter kits. We've got the most recent High Elf Dragon sticking up there. You can see a giant's butt just down there, half painted. This is the very remnants of an abandoned High Elf army that needs rescuing and redemption. This box is the least sparsely populated box. No, sorry, the most sparsely populated box, because these are my most recent miniatures. These are my 3D printed Chaos Dwarf army, including my test bull centaur, who got absolutely bashed last year and has fallen to pieces. But this is an army that I'm really super interested in the moment. And I would very much like to add a few more to these with 3D printing. My favorite box, my beloved dino box. The only thing you can keep in a box with a dinosaur on it is dinosaurs. So these are my lizard men. These are my 5th edition lizard men, my current favorite project. Since I started doing lizard men and making progress through them, a lot of people have been sending me lizard men. So I have got a surprising amount of bits and pieces of Warhammer 5th edition Fantasy starter set lizard men in here, including 1 or 2 metal models and a couple of command figures. Another one of my favorite boxes, I love a carry case. This carry case contains 2 different things. On the top level, it has the Chaos side of the Dark Vengeance set, the 40k starter set from, I don't know, 2012 maybe, with Chaos Space Marines, Cultists and a Hellbrute, versus Dark Angels. So we've got 5 undercoated Terminators, 10-man squad of Dark Angels, 3-man squad of Ravenwing, and 4 characters. But also this box contains the Space Marine side of the previous starter box, Assault on Black Reach. So these are much older monopose Space Marines with lower detail, and some Terminators who've been converted with various bits to be Dark Angels also, and a second Dreadnought. So plenty of Dark Angels in there if I decide to go the Space Marine route. Another big, terrifying, sweaty box. This one is another 35 litres of sprues, and sprues. And if you thought there weren't enough sprues, then some more sprues. This is majorly a Warhammer Fantasy Empire army that I bought from a friend who had bought 3 or 4 battalions before realizing that he wanted to get out of Empire, just as I wanted to get in. So I got a great deal on these, which has been lessened somewhat by the fact that they've sat in a box for 15 years. So there are at least 2 or 3 Empire armies in here for 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy, along with a few other things. For example, this looks like the Dark Angel Veterans sprue for Space Marines. There are definitely some Space Wolves in here, some Sternguard Veterans, some Necrons. This is just sprues upon sprues upon sprues. This is probably a couple of years worth of backlog on its own for some people. And we're back where we were a year ago, with a year's worth of models on the table in front of me, staring me down and saying, go on, try to paint us, you son of a gun, I bet you can't. But we're going to do it. We're going to paint these 4 trays of models. So, what do we have? Last year, one of the big successes was dividing between science fiction and fantasy. So one of the main things I was thinking when going through the pile of shame was to do something similar again. Also, I really wanted to have a nice variety of old and new models. So let's look at what we have. So let's start by breaking down the year as a whole. There are 3 or 4 projects I want to get done this year. Project number one, the big target for the year, is to get the Warhammer 40,000 Dark Vengeance box set painted. This box set really excited me when it came out maybe 10 or 12 years ago. We have Dark Angels facing off against a horde of Chaos cultists and some elite Chaos Space Marines. A fantastic box set. Really, in my opinion, the first of the modern Games Workshop Warhammer 40,000 starter sets, if that makes sense. This set came out after Space Hulk. These are modern miniatures. Sure, they've been replaced in the current universe by Primaris and by much more detailed, even more modern models. And comparatively, these guys are a little bit old-fashioned, a little bit softer on the detail, a little bit more heroically scaled with bigger hands and bigger feet and smaller bodies. But these are modern, highly detailed, super fine plastic models, and they are absolutely lovely. You can see from this side of the table, I almost kind of made a start on some of them when this set came out, but nowhere near enough to consider this anything but a fresh start. So that's the first box set, the Warhammer 40k Dark Vengeance starter set. The second box set I want to get done this year is the Blood Bowl 3rd edition starter set. This couldn't be more different while being simultaneously the same. Just like Dark Vengeance, it's an all plastic starter set. These are humans versus orcs. These are older, much older, early 90s plastic monopose models, much softer detail, much less detail, quite a bit smaller, still plastic GW easy to build miniatures. That is our 2 box sets. I really wanted to include some fantasy, and I don't have another complete fantasy box set, so I've kind of invented one, to be honest. On the other end of the spectrum from the modern, highly detailed plastic models, I have the Dogs of War. The Dogs of War for Warhammer Fantasy Battle 5th edition were the first models that I collected when I started. I never played Warhammer, but when I started being interested in Warhammer as a teenager. They are the epitome of jumping in with 2 feet before you know what you're doing. They were all painted differently. I bought units before I'd even opened previous units. They were, just looking at them here on the table, they were painted without undercoats, straight onto bare metal, not stuck onto their bases. They are an absolute disaster, and it's about time that they got salvaged. The second set of fantasy models are a bit of an anomaly, because these are totally up-to-date, top-of-the-range, beautiful, modern, 3D printed resin Chaos Dwarfs, designed in the style of 90s. They're flat, they're low detail, the details are quite soft, but they've got so much charm and character to them. I'm really excited to get them painted. Also, we've got resin. We've got 3D printed resin. So I made these figures myself by printing them in my house, which is an incredible thing to be able to say for mini collectors after 25 years of buying models. These are beautiful models. They are top of the range, modern, new, 3D designed to look like plastic monopose models that came out in 1993. So the sheer variety that I have in front of me here is what really excites me about the next year of Hammer the Backlog. But I can't paint them all at the same time, so I'm going to have to make the decision for which one of these is the target for quarter 1. And I'll be honest with you, I've already decided. So my target for quarter 1 is going to be to get my little imaginary starter set army of Dogs of War painted up, photographed and online. These guys were, like I said, some of the first models I ever bought. I'm treating them as if they were a starter set. So I've been inspired by the Empire side of the Warhammer 6th edition starter box. That box came out roughly the same time as these guys, maybe 2 or 3 years later. But we have a mounted general, I'm going to dedicate 5 Hammer the Backlog points to him. So he'll get a week on his own of being painted. Then we have a mounted hero and his cannon and his crewman. They are going to take probably 2 weeks. There's a lot of work between 2 horses, 2 mounted characters, 2 crewmen, and the cannon itself. Over here we have the halfling fighting cocks. There are 10 of them. They're quite small. They're quite detailed metal models, but they are small and simple, so it will be easy enough to do them 1 Hammer the Backlog point each, 10 points for the unit across 2 weeks. Then, just like that Empire starter set, we have some big blocks of spear or pike infantry. We have 12 of the Leopard Company and 12 of the Lost Legion. These are some of my favorite things about Dogs of War, are how weird these models are. We essentially have some Roman legionnaires with pikes, and we have some Spanish conquistadors with pikes. Each of them is a man-sized model and will probably take 1 Hammer the Backlog point worth of effort to get painted up. So between them, they are 24 points. That gives us 24 points of pikemen, 10 of halflings, a character for 5, and a war machine and hero for 10. A lovely little starter set, which I'm going to get painted over the next quarter. But, as I said, I like to have a painting project and a meta project for every quarter. So the meta project for this quarter has been inspired by Minisodes. Minisodes is a great new YouTube channel run by Ed. Ed recently painted up the 2nd edition Warhammer 40,000 starter box and made some incredible narrative battle reports using those figures. And that's really inspired me to want to do the same thing with my Warhammer 5th edition, Bretonnians versus Lizardmen. Now, I'm missing a couple of models to really be able to put the armies on the table that I need to make those battle reports. So collecting and painting and getting all of those models ready are going to be the second rock for this quarter, the second target for this quarter. Some of them I already have. For example, Emil from Tankwall's Lair very kindly sent me a command group for Saurus Warriors. I have another set of Saurus Warriors coming in the post from another friend, and then I've some skink command groups to paint up. So that will probably be another 2 or 3 weeks worth of painting, giving us 13 weeks or an entire quarter to paint. Well, I am very excited to be starting year 2 of Hammer the Backlog. Like I said, this is like Christmas for me. I've got a year's worth of projects that I'm super excited about doing. I can't wait to get into them. If you think this idea of painting and clearing your backlog in a productive and accountable way is interesting, it would be really, really great if you could, first of all, put a little like or a comment down below, subscribe to the channel so you get the latest updates all the time. But also, if you were ever thinking of doing something like this, now when I'm starting year 2, starting fresh, starting with a year's worth of models in front of me, this will be a perfect time for anyone else who's interested to also make a commitment of what they're going to do over the next quarter. Maybe you're not quite as focused as I am on this methodology, and planning a year ahead seems absolutely impossible, but maybe get started with a quarter. 3 months, the number of models is completely irrelevant. This tray just so happens to be the amount of models that I can comfortably paint in 3 months with my lifestyle and the amount of painting time I have to a standard I like. Other people can paint an entire box set in a week. Some people probably take a month to paint a signal miniature. It doesn't matter how much you commit to doing, it just matters that you commit it to yourself and you stick to your plans. If this was anyway interesting to you, please follow the blog at www.hammerthebacklog.com. That's updated every Thursday, come rain, hail or shine. Hammer the Backlog is also on Instagram, where I post pictures of the models only. None of this project work, none of this accountability stuff. If you just want to see the pictures of the shinies, then that is the place to go. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope to see you again in 3 months' time, when we will be having our year 2, quarter 1 review. And we will be looking at this tray of models fully painted. Thank you very much for watching this far. You are definitely a good egg. Some sort of Dogs of War based pun. Don't be a dog. Be a good egg.